We are surely in touch with several premium developers in the country, and I can assure you that they're working very hard on their SOPs, that when the market reopens, what all kind of safety measures they will take, and they're going beyond what the government is saying. So I think they're very, very aware of the fact that they need to follow strict measures and bring the customers back.
It's such a big privilege and a pleasure to reconnect with everyone, our distinguished panelists, some of who are members of the Blue Circle and some non-members, who are all handpicked because of the think input they bring in. And thank you to our distinguished audience for joining us. We've received over 300 registrations, and 90% of whom comprise of CEOs and CXOs. Many of them are repeat visitors to the webinar. So this is very encouraging and motivates us to provide even higher levels of dialogue. So thank you very much. So for those of you who are new with us today, the Blue Circle is an ecosystem for business leaders to help them become future ready. We focus on these 6 fundamental sectors, which are retail, education, real estate, electric vehicles, energy, and healthcare. We also present socio-economic insights, which ultimately determine the evolving complexion of the market. In response to the COVID challenge, the Blue Circle also has accentuated its digital presence. One of the many modes we employ is our webinar series, our digital publication, and we're also building a hand-picked, domain-focused expert pool drawn from among our leadership community, from our member base and its associates, that will guide businesses and during COVID and even post-COVID in these 6 sectors. And today we've invited thought leaders from different subdomains to give us perspectives from the retailer's perspective, the manufacturer's perspective, the supply chain technology perspective, and perspectives on how we need to rethink the design of our retail spaces. So let's together move the retail cart forward. I also deeply thank our knowledge partners, Colliers International, for joining hands with us. And thank you all once again. Now, in the best interest of time, I will just quickly mention the most relevant designations of the thought leaders on the panel. We have with us Mr. Anand Vijay, Chief Public Policy Officer, Walmart India. We have Mr. Asim Soni, CEO and Board Member, Modern Foods. Mr. Asim Behera, Executive Board Member and COO, Daifuku India. Mr. Jayant Vaitha, Director and Head of Design Services, Colliers International India. And Mr. Rajesh Jain, MD and CEO, Lacoste India. And the moderator for the session is Mr. Pavan Choudary, author, CEO, and public intellectual. Kindly note that we will have 2 rounds of Q&As with the audience and 2 rounds of polls to gather meaningful insights for our publication. So please share your views. And now I request Mr. Choudary to please begin the session, sir.
Great, thank you, Siddharth. And it's a pleasure to be among you all. Retail sector surely has got a sucker punch. Retail sector and sectors associated with it. For example, real estate associated with retail, manufacturing, etc. However, such has been the story during every pandemic which has hit humanity. To start on a positive note, there are 2 parachutes or 2 lifelines for real estate, for retail sector today, which were not there earlier. One is the online sector, online channel. So retail sector is already standing on 2 legs. This leg, online channel, may be a slimmer, less muscular leg, but it is gaining muscle. So it is not suddenly got air completely out of its system. It is alive on artificial lungs or another set of lungs. Second is, there are certain sectors in retail which have not been hit so hard. And that is also because of some technology. For example, like refrigeration. Refrigeration, which was not there even in 1918, the refrigerator had not reached domestic space, and it was exploding. So 1918, you hardly had refrigerators. You have these technologies. You have technology for entertainment to enter your home without you wanting to, well, without you needing to go. So there is some relief as compared to the past. On that positive note, I would like to begin uh, introducing to you the panel one by one through the questions I have for them. So first of all, let me bring in Rajesh. Let me bring in Anand Vijay of Walmart. Anand, can you explain to all of us what is the composition of this sector and what is the architecture of the sector so that we are knowing what area we are going to turn the spotlight on?
Thanks, Pavan. I'm very happy for Blue Circle for giving us this opportunity. As a company, we are Walmart. We are committed to this space, and as it exists in India today, we are looking at 820 billion, dollars of market, and the share of different sectors in this, especially, I mean, the main key areas are food and grocery, which constitutes to around 60% of this market, and apparel constitute to around 8%. Mobile telecom constitutes a further 6%. Food services around 5%. Jewelry is next 4%, and consumer electrics around 3%. So that's like the number of major divisions in the market. If you look at the impact, which actually is the greater factor to study when it comes to economy, then 10% of the GDP right now in India is coming from this sector. 8% of employment is being generated by this sector. 88% falls in unorganized. 9% is around organized, which is modern retail trade, what we call it, which includes both cash and carry and those which are doing retailing. And 3% is e-commerce. At a CAGR level, we are estimated to grow at 13% on an average. And we are talking about a growth of around 31% on e-commerce side. On the different format through which we are addressing the people are, of course, offline, online. We are talking about retail stores. We are talking about wholesale brick and mortar, where players like Walmart and Metro Cash and Carry are operating. And one theme which is running common to all these different players is the idea of omni-channel, because customer taste is changing. I'm sure other panelists will throw an impact on it. So that's some of the things. And the standardized understanding of retail and how it works during the COVID times has really seen some tough questions and challenges. And it would be a good idea to discuss that, like our understanding that while e-commerce is something which is growing fast, it does require a lot of structural support from government to continue this space. And at the same time, the traditional kiranas and their role has also got highlighted in terms of high demand of groceries, sanitizing items, biscuits, Maggi, so on and so forth. So thank you, Pavan. That was my initial comments.
I fully agree with the high demand of groceries bit, Anand.
Yeah.
Because soon as the first lockdown was announced, my wife told me that I have stocked up. And I said, what do you mean? For example, we have 140 eggs. So I could not, we have 140 eggs stocked up. I could not but quip through a rhyme in front of my kids and her, Sunday ho ya Monday, रोज खाओ अंडे, 140 पड़े हैं, फ्रिज में हो रहे हैं ठंडे. So that was the level of some sprite in the gloom. So I fully agree with that, and on that we will come to Aseem shortly. Or let me come to Aseem. Aseem, Soni, you have witnessed a sharp increase in your offtake. What Anand Vijay just referred to. Aseem, Aseem, Soni.
Yes, Pavan, thanks for the question. Yes, Pavan, that's right. Resonate with Anand completely. It's been trying times because suddenly the demand shot up. So like your wife, every wife was stocking up. And not just that, people were staying at home, and with all the 3 meals, from the house at home, the overall consumption of homemade food went up, and with that there was a major requirement to go and buy. So what's happened while this is true, what's also happened on the other side is that the companies have struggled to meet up with this demand, because the demand went up suddenly. We were not prepared for it. In terms of our last piece on the labor availability, packaging material, raw material inventory, we were not really ready for it because it happened overnight, literally. And of course, then there came all kinds of supply chain challenges. So the companies, the grocery companies dealing in commodities and fresh products took about 10 days to gear up to this demand. But I think finally we ended up delivering to the market what the market wanted. So last 40 days, I would say the demand is up by about 30%, if not less.
Great. So basically, because your product has a limited shelf life, that also would have required the supply engine to have come into really overdrive to handle the stocking up. Coming to Rajesh. Rajesh, what do you think are the main challenges that the retail sector is facing now? Rajesh is the MD of Lacoste. Asim Soni, as you know, is the MD of Modern Foods. So, Rajesh, what are the main challenges which are faced by the retail sector, and what are some ways to overcome these challenges? Rajesh.
Sure. Thank you, Pavan. Just to build a little background, I think we all know that this COVID-19 is not a localized event; it's a global pandemic. And if we see the impact of this, the impact on businesses, it can actually be traced back to only, let's say, World War II, or even before that of the Great Depression. Since then, I don't think the world has ever seen this. And because of this, in my view, it would be very hard to predict future as we speak today. And hence, I think there can't be any long-term thinking today, although, of course, as CEOs and MDs, we will all keep preparing our Excel and the business plans. But I really doubt whether anybody can convincingly say that this is what is likely to happen and we can present a picture of the future. Now, given this, what I feel personally is that once the lockdown lifts, it will take about 6 to 9 months to stabilize the business and perhaps come back to the older routine after that. However, what do we do during this interim period of 6 to 9 months, or even before that when the stores reopen? I think the first priority for all retailers and malls and all the other developers would be the people. And when I say people, it would be the customer and the staff. So first of all, we have to look at the safety and the security of all the customers and all the staff. We have to follow all the government guidelines, whether it is for safe distancing, whether it is to sanitize your hands after every 2-3 hours, whether it is to have the mask or the shields on your face. All those things are a must for all the retailers. Now, after that, the immediate thing that would hit all the retailers is the costs during this interim period, even after lockdown, because lockdown also, when we see there is no income, but their outflows are continuing, and retail, as we all know, is a daily business. You earn every day, and because of that, you end up paying your monthly bills or daily bills because of that. However, this problem is not likely to end with the lockdown itself. It will continue for the next 6 to 9 months. Now, if we look at those cost elements, there are 3 major costs for any retailer, as per my knowledge. One is cost of goods sold. The second is personal cost, and the third is occupation cost. I'll take each one of them one by one. The first is cost of goods sold, and when I say cost of goods sold, it actually means the inventory that gets converted into the inventory that you have to present in the stores for the customers. Here, the retailers would be facing a humongous task of ensuring that when the customer comes into the store, he looks at the fresh inventory and sufficient inventory. That's one part of the story. On the other hand, retailers who have not been able to sell their inventory in the past 2.5 months, they will also be stocked with old inventory, and they will also have to bring in new inventory. This could be a big challenge to make a fine balance between these two things. How we are doing it, we are taking a leaf out of the recession that we saw in 2008, 2009. So we picked up data from that. Then we picked up data from the demonetization period, and we saw how the market behaved 1 year after those events. And based on that, we are sort of projecting the requirement of the inventory in the store. Now, as I said, it's hard to predict future, but I think that could be a good benchmark to start with. Second is the personal cost. Personal cost, we all are loaded with these personal costs, and we all love our people. I feel I can answer this particular part in just one sentence, and which is that pay cuts are better than job losses. So I think most of the retailers would be gearing up for either pay cuts or job losses or a combination of both. My personal view is that pay cuts are surely better when you compare it with job losses. The third element of the occupation cost, that is where I think the definition of retail has got wider now. The developers and the retailers, they have become, or they consist the wider definition of retail now. They are becoming the two sides of the same coin. And that is where we have to really work harder in collaborative manner between the retailers and the developers, so that the developers are able to give us relief for this lockdown period and for the next few months, so that both the parts of the coin, they can survive for a longer period. It's not possible that one of them works well and the other one is just struggling. It will not work, because there are no retailers. If there are no retailers, the malls will not exist, and if the malls are not there, retailers will find it very, very difficult to grow. So to summarize this, I think these are the three main cost elements that retailers are looking at, and we have to find ways to address those cost elements.
Points very well made, because handling cost of goods is very important, and you need to have some lens to look at the picture, no matter how hazy it is. Absolutely. And you cannot just go for discount sales, because that can erode the equity of an esteemed brand like Lacoste or any other brand for that matter.
In fact, just to add here, Pavan, personally our brand and personally me also, we hate the word called discount. We believe in providing the right kind of merchandise, and it's giving the good customer service rather than capitalizing on discounts.
It will be interesting to see what your employees will say, Rajesh, when you cut their pays, because they might also say that we hate the word discounted pay. But this is just
no. But let me just address you. So I will just tell you, it was very heartening to see. We spoke to each and every colleague of ours, and we also have a manufacturing unit, so we spoke to our workers also, individually, each one of them. They were all more than ready to support the company during this time. They said the company has taken us through all the thick and thin so far. This is the first time the company is asking for a support, and we are we would be proud to contribute towards this cause. It was very heartening. Honestly speaking, I was very, very happy to see this kind of a response from our colleagues.
No, that speaks of how well you have knitted the whole team together. That's really fantastic. And coming to the real estate negotiation also, I feel newer models may be required, maybe a variable rent model based on the sale which happens. Because as you said, a pay cut is better than a job loss. Similarly, looking at it from the real estate developer's point of view, an empty shop is worse than a lower paying tenant. A lower paying tenant is better than an empty shop.
Absolutely correct.
I fully agree with you. So let me take this point. The first point which you made was how soon the customer will come in or can be brought in. So let me take this point to Jayant and let me ask him, how will you bring back the customer given the fact that right now he is mortified, he is agoraphobic, to borrow a term from your vocabulary, Jayant. Please explain agoraphobia. Please explain how you will get them back and explain how the design of retail chains may change to make him more reassuringly come back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pavan, and thank you for this opportunity. So, as you kind of look at it, this is probably an unprecedented challenge, which is kind of made every one of us thinking. And as you rightly said, the real estate is what housing the retail, right? Like, so how will we bring the customers back in, right? Like, the first thing which is everyone says that you need to provide a kind of healthy, safe and local environment, right? Which is again bringing back the Prime Minister's word about local, but that's a kind of very, very important now. Not many people will be going very far to the destination malls. They probably all look at their neighborhood centers, right? Like, so local is one thing, and healthy and the safe environment is first. How do we, as like you rightly said, agoraphobia is the fear of the large open spaces, and enclosed large open spaces is making people today scared. Is the virus in the air, right? Is will I be able to get that, right? So healthy environment is very, very important. And second thing is that everyone on the global is level thinking is that only way to do it is to sort of, at least for a short term basis or a medium term, is the contactless shopping. Can we provide, using the technology what we have, a contactless shopping experience, right? The technology is very much there. Amazon has done it in Seattle, where without touching anything you can just pick up and it's get deducted from your Amazon account, right? Why is not being done everywhere? And that those are the first thing which probably will come in the market, and probably hopefully it will spread as well. And the second thing is coming here is the tech-driven solutions, right? Like now we have been all rethinking. I mean, every retail shops on apparel side and all, we've been sort of asked that, okay, now no more trial room, no more reusing, maintain a little bit of distance. How do we, so the retail store design itself will change, in the essential commodity as well as the non-essential fashion retail, whatever, even including the food part of that, right? Like, and one more important thing is that this is the time the shopping center need to evolve itself, right? Like even the store need to evolve itself, right? Like it will have to go based on more about the experiential based shopping centers. Otherwise the e-retailers will sort of gain lot more ground than shopping centers. So this is something very, very important. And so shopping malls need to sort of maybe innovate itself into improving the amenities, improving, aiding the value additions, like things like the art centers, maybe concert spaces, something to give them a reason to do little more than the shopping. Now, how do we kind of make sure what is the shopping center? It's nothing but what is today replacing the downtown. The today's downtowns are shopping malls, so they are as much necessary as the public life is. So it's always will be important. And how do we innovate? And I've always been advocating something is that the high street type of shopping center, that is open air shopping centers, would probably gain lot more way forward than what it is right now. Like people suddenly started hating the air conditioning environment, which is for the same reason they were liking it. So those are the things which is need to be added in, right? Like, and a lot more things will have to get innovated in coordination with the retailers. Like, as you said rightly, is they are developers and the retailers are the coins, the same coins and two sides, right? Like, so together that need to be brainstormed and give a shape to the new mall. I also kind of agree with Rajesh that probably after 6 months, people will forget, start shopping on the same. But haven't we missed that opportunity, right, to reinvent ourselves? Maybe this is probably the best opportunity we had it in this 100 years to reshape our life, right? Like, it's a, so maybe this way, the same way the shopping and the experience around the shopping can be worked out such a way that it really truly make the shopping centers as the downtown where probably 50 years and all we kind of experienced before, which can really for a pleasant evening people go to shopping center and not anywhere else, so this is what it is. It's an opportunity to reinvent, and that reinvention will bring the customer back, like not their only habit, right? Because now there is a real balance between the e-retailers and the brick and mortar shopping center. How do we balance that? And that's the question, which is could be solved with a larger shopping center, maybe open air shopping center. The shopping center gives little more public area. Like right now, the present retail malls are probably giving 30-35% of the public area. Will the people dare to go in and sort of move around with such a close proximities? They would not, right? Like maybe the solution is to sort of increase the public area. Retail store might become a little lesser, but still it will give you the same business.
No, I think excellent points. You've made really excellent points. Virtual merchandising you've spoken about. Contactless sale you've spoken about. You have also spoken about the importance of discovering a new language between the buyer and the seller. Because if you cannot try apparel because of the fear that they may be contaminated, then you better go with the exact size. That size itself may become, the size glossary may become more granular. And you have also said that agoras, actually you've said that high streets is what is going to come. And that means agoras, which was discovered a few centuries back as high streets in Greece, high streets of retailing in Greece might be coming back. And I was also thinking, I was reminded of my childhood when I used to go to these small mom and pop stores in my neighborhood, and there used to be a perimeter which I could not cross. It was the counter which was going all around the store, and in the store, adjacent to wherever the shelves were, only the retailer could walk. I was always out. So maybe in times to come, we may also have one-way streets within retail zones or within retail shops, and a more regimented movement, etc. Great points you have made. Rajesh, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Pavan, I just wanted to add to what Jayant said, because there is no representative of developers here or e-com here. So just wanted to add a couple of points here. See, we are surely in touch with several premium developers in the country, and I can assure you that they're working very hard on their SOPs, that when the market reopens, what all kind of safety measures they will take, and they're going beyond what the government is saying. So I think they're very, very aware of the fact that they need to follow strict measures and bring the customers back. That's one. Second, about the e-com, I think e-com anyway is on a great growth trajectory. This COVID-19 has given it a flip. But having said that, I would like to say that both online and offline are two great channels of distribution for all the retailers. 3 years or 4 years ago, I used to hear and I used to participate in debates where we used to say that it's whether online or offline. But now everybody talks about online and offline, because online gives you an additional channel of reaching out to those customers to whom you otherwise cannot reach out. So these are a couple of points that I wanted to make. As far as high streets are concerned, we do have a few stores on high streets also. I feel that in a country like India, it's very difficult to attract a lot of customers on high streets unless and until you're a destination store.
That's
See,
correct.
most of us are corporate guys or business guys. We need a 3 or 4 hours of vacation. And that vacation cannot be provided by a high street store in this weather and the parking conditions and the road conditions, etc. We always want to go to a mall where the parking is not a problem. We go to an air conditioned environment. We have food, we have entertainment, we have shopping, and we can also roam around, meet around everything within that air conditioned environment. Of course, that air conditioning may be a problem for a shorter period where mall developers are talking about keeping the AC shut for some time to ensure that there is no COVID contamination or contagious thing. But just wanted to make it a point that yes, the mall developers, e-com, high streets, all of them have to go hand in hand.
No,
So,
very good. I think
Pavan,
you have made a great point.
sorry to butt in, but on this particular topic, just a quick point from my side. I think whether you like it or not, there is another fact to this whole narrative, which is that there has been a resurgence of the local neighborhood grocery guy in
Yes.
these times. He has become smarter. Some of these, standalone guys have realized how they can rise to the occasion, pick up a call from the lady of the house, have a conversation with her, get into to understand what her requirement is, and actually supply within 60 minutes. Now, this is going to, I feel, a little tilt the balance. I'm not saying that that the whole movement towards online and the large retailers will stop, but I'm saying that in every locality, 1 or 2 smart Alex are emerging, and they are there to give a fight for the fresh food and grocery to the bigger guys who supply after 3 days to 5 days, or purchases from where take time and effort to obtain. So that piece needs to be kept in mind.
Absolutely. So the crematorium of certain practices will become the creche of some new practices. And the people who can imagine the creche will be the successful people who will emerge as winners from this crisis. Coming to the point which Rajesh and Jayant made, I fully agree with Rajesh that this whole high street point has to be counterbalanced with the weather and pollution in India, and particularly the weather, because whether or not corona incapacitates in high heat or not, the shopper will surely incapacitate, and so will be the employee in the retail shop. So on that note, let me pull in Asim Behera and ask him how the manufacturer has adapted to these fluctuations in demand, and particularly to the sudden increase in demands in many areas which has come, like whether for food and grocery, of course, work from home products, electronic products, these products, how the manufacturer has adapted. Asim.
Yeah, thank you, Pavan. Thank you for this question. Thank you, Blue Circle, for. Give me 1 second. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. The screen showed as if I'm on the mute. Thank you for the question, and thank you, Blue Circle, for this platform. So one thing is, this has caught all of
Please
us.
Go a little louder, Asim. Louder, please.
Sure. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one thing for sure is this has caught all of us off guard. Nobody was prepared for this, and even till today, not being able to see let's say the enemy, or see the reason causing this, it's absolutely difficult to understand, to know what you're fighting against. And every day you think you've done something, a new theory comes up, and this is going to continue for some time. But one thing that we have seen in the ecosystem is, so the manufacturers are basically the people who are going to manufacture, and then only can you retail. So the manufacturers are, the one that we've seen who've embraced technology much earlier than this pandemic, are the ones who are able to restart, or who are able to support, or who've been able to work without too much of a challenge. Obviously, the supply chain challenge exists. Obviously, the distribution challenges are still there. Obviously, the lockdown still continues, and we hear about lockdown 4.0. So we don't know what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. So the challenges are obviously there, but technology and people who've embraced technology much earlier are able to do more with less. So I'll give you an example. So one of our very good customers is a food manufacturer, and they have been allowed to work or keep their factory running through the whole pandemic. And for them, the biggest challenge was, as with everybody, they don't have people now, because either once this pandemic started, people moved away from their workplace to their hometown, or they are not able to come because they lack public transport or whatever. But they are having to work with half of their manpower. Now, because they had embraced a lot of automation technology, both in manufacturing and in the intralogistics automation bit of it, they're able to reroute and repurpose whatever available resources they have to ensure that the supply goes through. One of our other customers, who's also a food manufacturer, what they've been able to do is they've been able to tie up with the last mile delivery. They've been able to tie up with the Swiggies, the Zomatos, the big baskets, something of a new channel to them that they never had or they never looked at before with such earnest, to use them, to utilize them, to further make reach to the customer. So what I would like to say is the technology bit of it, which is something that is always a question, which is always a return of investment that is difficult to justify in a country like ours because the labor is so cheap, that is going to change. And people who've embraced that early on, despite having a return of investment in that, are seeing the benefits now. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is on the e-commerce, which I will touch a little bit later during the conversation. Thank you.
Great points. And I'm getting a lot of questions on my WhatsApp as well. I'll try to tailor them, put them in various buckets and ask you so that we can answer, at least try to answer most of them. Coming to this point which you made, Rajesh, real estate developer not being here, let me tell you that 30% of the people on this webinar right now are CEOs and CXOs from real estate.
Oh, wow.
So they have come to defend their turf. and some of
Which
the
I'm doing anyway.
some of the questions are going to come from them also.
Sure.
You wanted to say something, Jayant, otherwise I'll come to the next point.
No, I think nothing at this stage, but while the discussion come in, I'll probably chip in, right?
Okay, so before I go to some specific questions which have come to you for you by name also, let me ask, what are you asking the government to do? And what is it that the MSME retailer needs? What can we do for the MSMEs in this sector? And let me come back to Anand Vijay. Anand.
Thanks, Pavan. I think government has announced a slew of measures. Yesterday, Finance Minister has also given some details of the measure. And they are on structural side as well as in terms of giving financial rebates and extending credit. But I think the challenge is less with respect to government extending, different soaps and different kind of stimulus to the MSME. I think the more challenge is making these programs and policies more understandable to the MSMEs. You see, sometimes government procedures and government sanctions and programs, they are so hostile in terms of how they are worded, and they are so difficult to access that it will be very difficult for an MSME to actually be availing these benefits. So I think one thing which we as organized players of retail can do is actually help MSME unlock some of the complexities of the kind of government schemes that are there and help them access these. So at Walmart, we have launched a very interesting program called Vriddhi. And of course, we did not know that COVID is going to strike us all of a sudden. It was more, a plan which was just, we started somewhere around January itself. But we have found that to be very useful. We had to adapt it. And in that program, what we are doing is we have a multi-pronged approach. So we have a help desk, we have a chat bot, we have webinars. What we are doing is we have made clusters of all the MSMEs based on which area, what MSMEs are dominant. So a latest example is of, we did one in Panipat area where we have made two major clusters. One is of textile and other is of home utensils, because most of the suppliers are in this area. And then we have facilitated and got people from SIDBI, the government organizations which are supposed to get these benefits sanctioned for the MSMEs. We get them in these webinars, let them directly interact to our MSMEs so that there is a one-to-one interaction and there is clarity on how the schemes are to be availed. We are doing a lot of hand-holding through these help desks, through the chat bot to the MSMEs. Queries are being addressed live so that these programs and facilities can be made available to them, accessible to them. At our own level, because of our understanding of the changing customer demand, especially in COVID, we were successful in at least getting 199 MSMEs all of a sudden transformed to the new emerging demand of safety kits, PPE kits, masks, gloves, and also link them to the demand areas because being a modern organized B2B player, demand keeps coming to us and we were able to facilitate. And some of it has seen a major traction in these last 1 month. We have been able to get some of them really successful orders. Because most of the MSMEs were neither prepared to understand, they were not aware that all of a sudden the customer demand will change. So MSMEs right now are facing three major problems as we understand. One is, of course, the working capital challenge because most of them operate at not more than 2 months of working capital level. And that's completely wiped out. The second is, all MSMEs do have certain kind of skilled labor who are working with them. While they may not be classified as skilled in terms of government sanction, but the work set was skilled. They had spent time, money, and energy in training them. Now, due to government policies and due to fear of corona, most of these laborers have just ran away. So now the second challenge that they are facing is how to get that manpower and how to get them trained quickly. And third, of course, is the big area on changing customer demand. So which is structurally imposed by the government in terms of selling only essentials. And also, because of this fear that markets would not recover in probably Q3, Q4, there will be a tendency to save money and customers would not be spending in non-essentials. So what we are doing is we are guiding our MSMEs on what are the new trends in demand, which they can, on their existing production capacity, transform and address the demand. So yeah, these are some of the baby steps that we are taking.
Great, great. I think these are not baby steps. And before I comment on them, let me tell Rajesh that Rajesh, I know you have something to say. I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
And there's another question from you from Avik Basu, who is also a Blue Circle expert. What strategy will Lacoste resort to post-COVID? So you can think about that also while I just make my 2 cents on what Anand has said. This is amazing, Anand. Unlocking the complexities of government schemes, you said, and making them more palatable to the MSME who may be in awe of the government, which has traditionally been a predator, which is now becoming a facilitator. So, in fact, one of you was discussing before the session, Blue Circle interaction with Gurcharan Das, where I asked him what is the name of that famous book about India. He said, it's called India Grows at Night. So I asked Gurcharan that, why do you call it that? Why is the name like that, India Grows at Night? He says, because India actually grows at night because only in the night the government is sleeping. So either we have had a predatory government or an inefficient government. A government will rent seek or give very complex policies. So this is a great effort which you are making, and let me compliment you on that. And especially with your background in IAS, I think you will surely be able to be the bridge between the humble MSME guy and the gargantuan government and make them meet to facilitate things for the MSMEs. Coming to you, Rajesh, you had some point to make, as well as my question coming from Avik Basu.
Sure. So I would just like to add to what Anand just said about the asks from the government. I think there are three predominant asks. The first is liquidity. The second is about participating in the costs, and the third is creating demand. So first, when has been to a great extent, it's been addressed by the package that was announced by the finance minister yesterday. But unfortunately, I do not know how many of us know that retail is not allowed to be registered as MSME as we speak today. It has been excluded from the MSME segment. However, the MSME minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, had a meeting with Retailers Association of India just a few days back. And he also came on record on the television saying that we are looking into this and we would try to add retail also into MSME segment. We will allow them to be MSME companies. The problem, another problem linked to this is that whatever the government announces, it takes a very long time for implementation of that. So my request to the government would be that if they can also see to the last mile delivery of what they announce, that will really help the entire corporate sector in the country. The second one, I would say that if there could be some participation in the form of, let's say, sharing the personal cost or sharing the rental cost, etc., that would really, really help the retail sector, which contributes to 10% of the GDP of the country. And the third part is, I think there is a possibility that the finance minister might announce something more to do this, and which is to create demand. It's not only the survival right now, we also need to come out of this over a period of time. And for that, customer demand is a very, very important factor to put money into customers' hand. And I do hope that the government comes out with some announcement towards that also. Now, coming to Avik's question about what strategy Lacoste will follow up during this period of time or post that also. Personally, I believe, and I think that's the global thought about the global brands also, that unfortunately, there will be several brands or several retailers who will have to shut shop because of COVID-19. The brands that would survive or the retailers that would survive are the ones who would offer value for money and who would offer a brand promise. Brand promise, when I say it consists of a lot of things. It's not only one thing or not only value for money. It ensures consistency. It ensures assurance. It ensures that even before you enter a brand's store, you can expect what you can expect in the store. Similarly, Lacoste is a very, very strong brand. We have a lineage dating back to 1933, and the polo that most of the brands have adopted now was actually invented by the founder of our brand. And our main DNA, apart from a lot of other things, one of the main DNAs is that we provide freedom of movement, which fortunately or unfortunately has also become the reality of life now, that with the social distancing norm, you have to provide freedom of movement to all the customers, to all the other people in the stores that they come or in the malls that they come. So we will continue to work harder towards creating that brand DNA, towards creating that space for the customer, towards offering a great product to the customers and in the right kind of environment. It will continue to remain premium. In fact, we are, other than COVID also, we were going more premium, and which we will continue to do. Of course, barring this limited period, we'll continue to strive for the excellence.
Great points, Rajesh. So coming to Jayant again with the question that Kirana stores, which Asim Soni also spoke of, are getting a resurgence of sorts. At the same time, do you think that they will require a facelift which makes them safer, more pleasing, having better ambience? And will your company Colliers, which is giving so far advice to big retail chains on their design, will you be servicing them also? This is the question which I have for you. Now, I'm just coming to you in a minute. before, and I'd like to announce the next question which I have for Aseem Behera, that Aseem, how the e-commerce space or online space can be utilized effectively by offline and vice versa, so as to overall try to compensate compensate the slump in demand which has come. So this is my question for you, Aseem. I'll come back to you so that you can collect your thoughts on this. Jayant,
Thank you.
meanwhile, my question to you is how the Kirana store should upgrade.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's a great question and very, very pertinent at this stage, right? Like, what is actually a single most module of the retail? It's probably, in my opinion, is the Kirana shops, right? Like, this is where it's kind of a mother of the retail, where the whole retail industry probably would have started, like, and how and yes, I mean, I already seeing a trend that the lot of local stores are kind of reinventing itself, like, be it in the space layout, be into locating themselves, be into branching it out, be into offering the value additions like technology and the home deliveries, so yes, we at Colliers would be very delighted to help them out, because now this is where the word local is coming to, right? Like, you will see more and more in a short term the people sort of trying to find the required goods and amenities into sort of within a particular distance, right? Maybe 2, 3, 5 kilometers, like, so within that, yes, it'll probably will have that ecosystem of Kirana store would develop around and sort of try to form a neighborhood, right? Like, yes, even the retail mall could probably take that advantage and reinvent itself into neighborhood shopping centers, right? Like the maybe a smaller ones, right? Like, why do we always have to have a big, large mega malls, right? Like, so neighborhood shopping or neighborhood retail is always been a very essential. Kirana stores are very, very essential part of that. And yes, the kind of repositioning them or reinventing, it's already kind of happening in a lot of places, right? Like, I mean, I would say even the larger retailers are also sort of having more smaller format to sort of substitute or compete with the Kirana store. So why not? I mean, this is where the whole retail building of the retail is starting, like.
And I will, great points. Before I go to Aseem, let me tell Aseem Soni also that what is it that he would like to add to this question, what perspectives he would like to bring to the question which I am asking Aseem Behera right now, as to how online and offline can come together in the retail, fashion, retail, accessory, non-essential good space. Aseem Behera.
Thank you, Pavan, for the question. Let me just rephrase the question just to make sure that I have it. So the question is, how can modern retail leverage e-commerce for the slump in demand that is expected to come, right? So in the modern retail world, we have been talking about something of omni-channel for the last, I think, 5 years. It's been everybody's jargon, omni-channel this, omni-channel that. And I think one of the panelists also mentioned that today you talk about online together with offline. It's a combination. So e-commerce, apart from what it has been doing, serves different areas in a different way. So in the urban areas, in the metropolis, e-commerce is a matter of convenience. It's a convenience that because you have your internet access, you have a phone, the streets are congested, you are busy, you can just look up on your phone and click something, buy now, and you will get it without ever leaving your comfort zone, whether without leaving to go to a store to find a parking or what have you. That's the convenience that it brings in the urban areas. In the non-urban areas, the tier 2 cities and so forth, what e-commerce has been doing is giving the buyers, giving the customers an opportunity, a selection that they will not have otherwise, because maybe that area is not a consumer center. So you won't have all the modern retail stores open up shops there. So e-commerce gives you that access, right? So this has been going on, and we see more of that now in the COVID area. So for example, I live in Bombay, where Bombay is full of societies. And apart from the rules that the government has laid out, each society's RWA, the Resident Welfare Association, is coming up with its own rules. And the reason they're coming up with their own rules is because if one person is found positive, they will lock down the whole building. It's not like Delhi or Hyderabad, or where you have your own individual houses, that if you are locked down, you're quarantined, only your family is affected. Here, if you are locked down, if one case is found, they lock down the whole building. And in a society, you could be having as many as 100 flats or apartments. So therefore, more and more rules are coming in. And one of the rules is, hey, we will provide everything to you. We will go talk to the farmers and get them to come here so that you don't have to go out. We will encourage Swiggy and Zomato and all these guys to deliver so you don't have to go out. Please don't go out if you don't have to, is kind of the message that they have been saying. So obviously with this COVID-19 right now, and not knowing what who the enemy is and how you will contract it apart from just guideline, I think people are going to stay more indoors. People are going to, even if the malls open up, even if the things open up, I think Jayant said that they'll have to look at making malls more of a recreational avenue for people to go out there rather than just for their basic needs. Because these 2 months have already taught us that we can do so much without stepping out already, be it working from home, be it getting our essentials, and so on and so forth. So the risk that people have, the fear that they have in their mind to go out, is going to last some time longer. So now the question is, how can the retailers leverage e-commerce to make do for this slump in demand? So as I was saying, one of our customers, who's a manufacturer, who has a good dealer network, was very happy doing business. In fact, he was growing at about 12% year on year. But now because of this, because of the pandemic, obviously some of the shops have been closed. Obviously the D-marts and big bazaars and all of that, there is only so much that they could sell. So they had to find new access. So they have gone ahead and tied up with e-commerce companies so that they have now a platform. They now have a platform because not everybody is running at the same space. Not all the factories are running at the same space. So maybe stuff that you need or people are used to buy is out of stock because it's not available because of manufacturing issues or supply chain issues. So they have gone out, put themselves out there. So if I don't have choice A, I'm going to go for choice B. I'm not going to wait for the choice A because it's not available. So I think using e-commerce as an additional platform for people who've not used it is definitely going to be a way to give them that added access, the one that they have lost or will lose in terms of volumes for the next few months. Thank you.
Absolutely. So if I was to combine what you and Jayant have said, Jayant said that we need to go local and help the Kirana store also upgrade himself. I fully agree. I am also with the Prime Minister that we should go local. But I hope that Jayant is also coming out with service from Colliers, which will be affordable, because somewhere local means affordable also, Jayant. So we will come to that. Regarding the points which you have made, Aseem, you feel that new nuclei of supply chain will emerge, which will be new centers of growth, which will help us exploit the online along with the offline. So there can be virtual merchandising, and there can be, as someone said, contactless deliveries, and there can be VR and AR, etc., virtual reality, etc., which should come more. In fact, one of the experts has written that earlier we used to have this color code. In advertising, they had this color book, which used to name all the colors and the composition of cyan, magenta, etc. within them, to be able to say this, to be able to mean that exact color to the printer. So it is possible tomorrow we might have swatches for feel, and then we can order products. So the offline online game is going to compose in a different manner, and online is a strength which every retailer should be able to build. Coming to Aseem, Soni. Aseem, in the essential goods sector, do you feel that this online offline partnership, which has materialized and gathered steam quite a bit because of COVID, do you think this will sustain, and do you feel that this partnership can become even stronger in times to come, and how?
Oh yes, there is no doubt about that. If you visualize the post-COVID times, definitely there is one learning that is emerging out of these times we've gone through, is that the online penetration has gone up. Now I don't know the scores there, but somebody has to come and actually do the tracks. But if the online penetration in terms of purchases was 5%, 10% earlier, it is in the league of about 25, 30% now. And I'm not just talking about metros. Even if you see cities, for example, the other day somebody was telling me he's living in Patiala. They had a very strict lockdown, and the state government, what it has done is given telephone numbers of the local retailers to every house, and the residents are supposed to call up that number and get the stuff delivered. Now imagine who's delivering. The police is delivering, picking up from the stores and taking them to the houses. So one fact is that the online penetration by default or design is gone up. The second point that I was making a while earlier is that I don't think that the local neighborhood retailer is going to be able to offer the shopping experience that a large retailer, or the choices that a huge online retailer offers to the shopper or the consumer. I think that there is a chemistry, a new chemistry that has developed in these times for the essential products between the local smart grocer who is willing to upgrade his model, not the store, not the layout, but the business model, and the lady of the house. And those two are starting to connect beautifully. Even the most quickest of deliveries today in milk and eggs reaches you within 12 to 18 hours. Whereas if you call up a local guy with the new model that he has discovered, and with the new sort of collaboration that is emerging, he has started delivering in 60 minutes to 75 minutes. And what a wonderful thing. If I can get my essentials at just a phone call away, if they are and get them delivered in 2 hours time, I don't think any of the large online platforms or a large retailer, even though they're offering better conveniences and better experiences and better choices, I don't think they can replace this kind of a response time from the local retailer. So I think that is here to stay. And therefore, I do not think, I would little disagree with the question itself. I do not think there is a need to redo or support the local retailer in terms of making the shopper experience better. He doesn't need to. The newfound discovery is home delivery. How can I localize the online?
No, great point. Great point. In fact, you are saying that the police will can deliver these goods. Earlier, the police was only delivering the passport. And when it was delivering the passport, there used to be a quid pro quo expectation. I am sure in the new chemistry which you are talking about, and which the administration is trying to bring, which people like Anand, Vijay are trying to facilitate, the police will be less rent-seeking in such endeavors. But you have made a great point, and the greatest point which you have made actually, Aseem, is the point of speed. And somebody has asked me to repeat the couplet which I made just like that, when my wife stocked 140 eggs post the lockdown. So the couplet was as follows: Sunday ho ya Monday, रोज खाओ अंडे, 140 पड़े हैं, फ्रिज में हो रहे हैं ठंडे. So what you are saying is, itna stock up ki zarurat hi nahi hai, because in 60 to 90 minutes, your retailer will deliver. I will surely share your insight with my wife and ask her to go easy on the fridge. But the more important point which you have brought in is the speed. Speed is also an important area on which retailers will now compete. A couple of other questions have come. Let me quickly put them up, and you can raise your hands, whoever wishes to answer. A question which has come is on Kirana shops with Reliance Jio as the aggregator. What kind of impact it will have on retail? This is hyper local space the question is coming from. And the other question is, which I'm adding to, that advertising also will change. Maybe advertising space can be bought cheaper today because there are not so many buyers. And how will the above the line and below the line activities segment? So I would like to know if there are any hands going up on this. Otherwise, okay, Aseem is coming out with the answer for.
Right.
Aseem.
So I will, thanks, Pavan. I will go for the first question.
Okay.
The first question about the microphone. So the question that's put in is a trend that we are seeing happen in America very much. It's a trend called micro fulfillment centers. So what that has done is basically, as modern trade is slowing down and e-commerce is taking up, a lot of the malls are not able to. They're not attracting the footfalls, and therefore they're not getting the revenue that they want. So they are being shut down. And malls always happen to be in these fantastic locations, which is always very convenient to a suburb, which is right there on the highway. So therefore the access is excellent. But since they're shutting down, and it's a big area, it's a big expensive area, so they have to make money out of it. So what a lot of the companies are doing is they're opening up micro fulfillment centers there, where they are basically smaller extended warehouses for either the e-commerce or for other retailers, where the last mile delivery, which is actually one of the most expensive piece of e-commerce delivery, kind of gets taken care of, because it reduces the distance from the mother warehouse to the customer. So therefore you have a micro fulfillment center somewhere, and this nowadays the trend is being a mall that gets converted to that, and they are then able to serve out the last mile to the customers and fulfill orders. So with the Reliance Jio thing that the question was asked, I think it's a replication of that model, but not necessarily for modern retail, but for the Kirana stores. So the Kirana stores will become the last mile delivery points for the e-commerce companies, thereby enabling the Kirana stores and reducing the cost of last mile delivery. So it's going to be a win-win for both sides.
Okay, so you're basically saying that the whales like Reliance Jio are coming to the help of the minnows. And the question also wants to know what will happen to the dolphins, the departmental stores, etc. If the minnows will become so agile thanks to the support from the big players like Reliance Jio. And I'll come back to you after I have taken the second question to Rajesh.
Yeah.
The question is regarding advertising space buying. Rajesh, are you planning to buy more advertising because it is cheap, or you're hedging your bets? And how will above the line, below the line proportions change?
Okay, so thank you, Pavan. But before I answer that question, I would like to set the context.
Yeah.
See, as I said, that I am a bit of an optimistic guy. I see the glass as half full rather than half empty. I firmly believe that this COVID and the impact of this is relatively short term. And when I say short term, it could span to, let's say, 6 to 9 months, or let's say this financial year. After that, it will come back to the normal thing. And we have seen in the past, during recession, if we remember, we all thought that this is the end of the world. There will not be any economic boost. Nothing will happen from now onwards. But immediately, just within a period of 1 year, we all forgot that and we started growing the way we were growing earlier, or maybe better than that. Same is the case with demonetization. When demonetization happened, we all thought that cash will completely go out of the system. It will be only digital payments from now onward. But we know the cash is completely back into the system, maybe with more force rather than earlier also. Similarly, I feel and I believe that COVID-19, the impact of this is not going to last for many years to come. It will last for, let's say, 6 to 9 months from here. Even if COVID continues beyond that period, we will have to learn to live with COVID. I firmly believe in the quote by Aristotle that says that man is a social animal. People need social affiliation. They will come out, they will start going shopping, and they will get back to their original routines. Of course, there will be some good practices that will percolate down for all times to come. Advertising, when we look at advertising, there were good old days when most people would go and advertise through print media, or they would use PR to a great extent. However, that trend has already changed in the last few years. If I take our example, we have gone completely digital, because in earlier case of print advertising, we would advertise in a newspaper or in a magazine, and then we'll keep wondering whether it is reaching the target audience or not. But with the change to digital media, now we completely know I can segregate and target my audience geographically, by age, by income, by the kind of gadgets that they use. So the trend has completely changed automatically. If we see today's environment during the COVID lockdown period or a period subsequent to that, I doubt whether a lot of people would like to buy additional space just because it is cheap. I don't think a business person would buy anything just because it is cheap, because unless and until it gives you an ROI, it's unlikely that any business leader would take that decision. And during this period, when either there is a lockdown or the lockdown lifts, the advertising may not necessarily result into the great ROI that one looks at. So I don't think, at least not us, we will not go full hog on advertising just because it is cheap. It has to deliver ROI. So I think that should answer your question, or am I missing out on something?
No. You are raising a very good point, and I'm reminded about the SARS epidemic. The SARS epidemic actually became the trigger for huge increase, which continues till today, in online shopping. So, however, it is also we will also have to hedge our bets by saying that we will need to see how long the vaccine takes to come, how effective it is, what is the relapse rate of the disease. And I also feel that many of the threats which have been spoken to us of demonetization or even commercial threats, when the internet came, it was said that now the malls will not run, people will shop online. Now the schools will not run because people will educate online. But the shopping has started online, but the malls were also running, schools were also running. So the change comes, but it is not that the past obliterates. The past also keeps running, and I think it will re-emerge after COVID. I fully agree with you. And coming to the next question, and I would like to know who would like to take it. This is a question which is speaking about the demand side. It is saying that if pay cuts come and if job cuts also come, and then the demand will go down, how will you ensure that the demand will perk up again? How can you keep on pushing supplies? Of course, Adam Smith has said that supply creates its own demand. That means jo dikhta hai so bikta hai. And my fridge is the proof. If there is a lot of stuff there, we end up eating more. So, but the point which he is making is that if the purchasing power itself goes down, what is it that how will you think you will be able to perk up the demand? What should the government do in that case, Anand?
Yeah, I think see, it's a tough one because government has a big challenge, and if you look at traditionally how people have behaved, with the kind of uncertainty that is being projected both internationally, globally, and in India, I would say consumers would be very conservative in Q3. So Q3, I don't think they would be returning back in big numbers. They would only be going for essentials and probably, some gradation of non-essential where the needs are very high, seasonal, like, maybe air conditioners or something like that. But with so many slew of measures which government is bringing, and if you look at all major economies, I mean, I was just looking at the US data. So in World War II, US had done a deficit financing of 3% of the GDP. So this time they have done it 10% of the GDP. So I mean, the kind of understanding that major governments of the world has of the challenge that contraction in demand can pose to the economy, its impact on unemployment. That's one big positive thing that's happened out of COVID. So I think government of India is not away from target and away from the understanding of what challenges a contracted demand would impose on the economy. But at the same time, historically, the challenge of our government has been execution, and probably leakages in the execution. So until as actually people end up getting that extra, income which is disposable and which they can in turn use it to procure their consumer demand, this is going to be very challenging. I mean, it is better as an retailer and those of us who are in business to estimate on the conservative side and understand that it is going to be a tough time, devise our war chest. So there are multiple questions on how do you continue to fund a huge number of people. Initially government has come up with measures which are absolutely anti-business. When you say you continue to pay salary and at the same time you do not allow people to operate, how does it happen? We don't run based on people's taxes. We run based on sales. Until some sales are done and revenues generated, how do you continue to support such a huge amount of employees? But at the same time, I think there is some, so markets have matured. There is an understanding among the suppliers and among the customers. So somebody asked a question on how do you address the issue of increased prices? I would say that the more transparent you are, the better it is. So our customers need to know that our prices might have gone up because of the high cost of transportation. We were seeing that crude oil has crashed world over, but in India, the prices of diesel went up. So now there's a direct impact on the cost of the services or the product that we are delivering. And similarly, if the back-end manufacturing laborers have vanished and laborers have to be arranged, then the efficiencies in terms of economies of scale and scope is under pressure. So there will be a rise in price. So there are multiple factors and there are no easy answers to get the customers back to the store. I think the strength would lie on each brand continuing to operate on the trust level which they are. Like I would share one example of Walmart. Most of the suppliers have come to us saying back that we have realized that because of COVID crisis, people who were chance buyers or who were opportunistic in terms of exploiting the market, they have just vanished. Whereas you all have stood the test of time. So we want to strengthen our business relationship with you. And I'm sure same is true with the B2B customers. Like we operate in a B2B space. So the kind of traction that we have seen in supporting our kiranas, as somebody shared that we explored multiple third-party logistics partners just to ensure that those kiranas who are allowed to be open and grocery selling, we continue to give them back-end supplies so that their reputation among the customers is alive. So I think, sticking to the basics, driving the value proposition which is there for you is something which will help customer come back to you. I don't think there is any magic wand, but I think Rajesh would like to add something.
Rajesh, please add, and after that I will close the session. It is more questions are coming, but please have the last word. Go ahead, Rajesh.
Okay, so I would just like to add here, there is no doubt that the demand will slide down for some time. And most retailers are actually calibrating this slide into their projections anyway. But at the same time, I would also like to say that there is a latent demand which is still persisting. The aspirations of people are not going away. The problem with current COVID scenario, unlike the past recession or the demonetization period that we saw, there is an added element of scare amongst the people to go out and to start shopping. Because of that, most retailers are taking a degrowth in their physical stores. However, when we come to online, most retailers, as per my knowledge, including us, are expecting a growth in online channel because the aspirations of people are not going away. And just to give you an example, to support what I am saying, we as a company are taking orders, booking orders on a couple of online websites where we are clearly telling the customer that we will not be able to deliver you the product. It will be delivered when the lockdown lifts. Despite that, our sale in the current year for the same period last year is almost similar. That clearly shows that there is an aspiration, there is a latent demand which is not going away, but because of the scare, people might be scared to venture out physically, and that has to be figured in, but online it will grow. That there is no doubt. However, from next year onwards, both the channels are expected to grow for most of the retailers, including us.
Great point. And on that positive note, what I'd like to say is that both you and Anand have said a very good point, and that is that the scare of the contagion, and research after research has shown this, that the demand goes down after a pandemic more because of scare of the contagion than economic inability or the psychological fear of spending. It is more because of contagion, the fear of contagion. So that has to be looked at. The government can step in to provide, to sponsor jobs which will give employment to people who lose their jobs, for example, in infrastructure, etc. The trust point which Anand made is also very important, that in such cases, people gravitate towards more trustworthy vendors because they feel that the safety aspect will also be well taken care by them, as well as they want continued supplies. So they go to vendors who are evergreen, who are staying, who are weathering the storm well. So these are some points, and online also what you said is very right. In fact, some retailers are using their offline shops as the delivery centers or dispatch centers for what orders they are getting online. So they are using everybody so that none of the channels gets rusted. And if people will maintain demand or calibrate the slide and then come back, the sector will again surely reemerge. There are more questions to ask, so I will request Siddharth to make sure that whatever questions I have not been able to put before the panelists or answer myself are put before the panelists, and the answers provided to all those people, CEOs and CXOs, a large number of them who are still with us. On that note, I thank you very much, Siddharth. It's over to you.
No, thank you very much. I think we've all received a lot of nuggets to take home. Such beautiful perspectives from such thought leaders on this panel, and thank you very much. Thank you, the audience. We're still getting a lot of questions. We've got a lot of messages as well. So I will reach out to you individually if there are relevant questions for you. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining in today.
Thank you, panelists, for once again raising the caliber of the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pavan. It was a great moderation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Siddharth.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth.